When we look back at the 1970s British summer holiday, our minds instantly paint a picture of pristine golden sands, perfectly sunny coastal towns, and idyllic family bonding by the sea. But the raw, historical truth of the 70s getaway was a completely different story. Real life for millions of working-class Brits meant packing into a broken-down Austin Allegro during a national fuel strike, enduring freezing cold rain inside a damp, wood-paneled caravan, and fighting off absolute boredom at a fading seaside resort where the local beach was literally covered in industrial pollution and sewage. Today, we remember this era as the golden age of leisure, but the actual data and archives reveal a decade of ultimate holiday chaos. So how did one of the most stressful, unhygienic, and unpredictable eras in British travel history become remembered as a paradise? The classic image of the 70s British seaside is a sun-drenched beach filled with happy swimmers. But the historical reality of places like Blackpool, Brighton, and Scarborough was a constant battle against the elements and infrastructure. True British holiday style back then meant sitting on a pebbled beach in a thick woolen jumper, wrapped in a heavy winter coat, shielding yourself from a biting North Sea gale behind a flimsy striped windbreak. If it started pouring with rain, which it frequently did, the beach was abandoned for the grim shelter of a faded concrete pier, where families spent their hard-earned loose change on broken slot machines just to stay dry. But weather wasn't the biggest problem. The actual water conditions of the 1970s would completely shock a modern traveller. Before strict environmental regulations were introduced, dozens of Britain's most popular coastal resorts systematically pumped completely untreated, raw sewage directly into the sea, often just a few hundred yards from where children were paddling. It was a time when the local newspaper regularly warned tourists about high bacteria levels on the shore, and finding industrial waste washed up on the sand alongside the seaweed was just a normal part of the daily walk. For those who skipped the seaside bed and breakfasts, the ultimate alternative was the Great British Caravan Park or holiday camp, run by companies like Pontins or Butlins. These camps promised a revolutionary world of non-stop entertainment, but real life inside them was highly regimented. When you arrived at a 1970s holiday camp, you weren't checking into a luxury resort. You were assigned a basic unheated chalets or a damp wood-paneled caravan that smelled permanently of stale gas and damp wool. Because there were no smartphones, tablets, or multi-channel televisions, entertainment was entirely manufactured by the camp staff. This meant families were subjected to an escalating triad of mandatory group activities. You were woken up by blaring loudspeakers at 7 a.m., marched down to the communal hall for forced group exercises, and expected to cheer at aggressively cheerful knobbly knees or glamorous grandmother competitions. It was hyper-organized, high-energy chaos designed to distract guests from the fact that it had been raining heavily for 4 consecutive days. If you think fast food chains today are bad, the dining choices for a 1970s holidaymaker were an absolute minefield. This was a bizarre transition era where traditional British cooking was colliding with a sudden, aggressive rise of cheap, mass-produced synthetic foods. Eating out on holiday didn't mean enjoying fresh, locally caught seafood at a harbourside restaurant. For most families, a high street meal meant stepping into a smoky, brown-panelled cafe where the special was a plate of rubbery crumpets, or a local chip shop where everything was deep-fried in heavy, reusable animal lard. If you wanted to treat the family to a sit-down dinner, the absolute height of holiday luxury was a Burney Inn, where you queued up for a standard, unseasoned prawn cocktail served in a silver coupe, followed by a steak garnish and a glass of sweet Liebfraumilch wine. But for the vast majority of Brits, holiday dining happened right inside the rented caravan or holiday chalet, and the cooking reality was straight out of a survival manual. Because portable caravan refrigerators were incredibly small, highly unreliable, or completely non-existent, fresh milk, meat, and vegetables were an impossible luxury. A standard holiday dinner menu was a masterclass in processed sodium. You started by boiling water on a temperamental double-burner gas ring to rehydrate a packet of smash instant mashed potato flakes. That was paired with a tinned Vesta curry, a revolutionary space-age dried box meal where you added water to dehydrated meat and crunched on uncooked deep-fried crispy noodles. If you weren't eating Vesta, you were frying up a slab of Spam, sliding a Frey Bentos tinned meat pie into a tiny gas oven, or heating up a tin of Heinz toast toppers, a thick, unidentifiable mushroom and cheese paste spread over white bread. Even the refreshing summer treats were heavily processed. Fresh fruit was replaced by tinned Del Monte peach halves, swimming in heavy, sugary syrup, topped with a stream of hot Nestlé condensed milk straight from the can. For dessert, children didn't get artisanal gelato. They got a lukewarm bowl of instant Angel Delight whipped up with powdered milk, or a block of generic supermarket Neapolitan ice cream that Mum sliced straight out of a cardboard box with a kitchen knife. So, if the weather was freezing, the beaches were polluted, the accommodation was damp, and the food was terrible, why do millions of people look back at this decade with absolute devotion? Because the 1970s was the exact moment the British working class finally won the right to escape. It was the decade where paid holiday leave became a standard legal right for workers across the UK, giving everyday families the freedom to travel. But just as the British seaside reached its peak popularity, a massive economic shift turned the entire travel industry on its head. In the mid to late 70s, pioneering tour operators began offering hyper-cheap package holidays to the Spanish coast, like Benidorm and Majorca. The British high street travel agent became the gateway to a completely new world, and as millions of Brits hopped on planes to Spain, the classic British seaside resorts were left to slowly decay, marking the tragic end of a beautiful, chaotic, and completely unforgettable era of real British life. If this nostalgic look back at the 70s holiday brought back vivid memories of traffic jams in an old Morris marina, the smell of a damp caravan, or the sheer joy of a holiday camp, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, I want to hear your travel stories. Drop a comment down below and tell me, what was your most chaotic or memorable British summer holiday experience from back in the day? Let's get a massive conversation going down in the comments.